Whew. Well, that was a little setup. But guys, welcome back to Kay's Corner podcast, episode 5. Yes, we are here with.
Michael Wilcoxon.
Okay, so Michael, I want you to kind of introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Michael. Um, I'm originally from Texas. I moved up here to New York in 2020, into 2021. Um, I played college football at the University of Texas. I grew up playing sports, football, baseball, everything but I call it soccer ball. I know it's soccer, but anyway. Um, but yeah, I always grew up playing sports. Do you want me to give my background more or
Yeah,
more in depth?
definitely give a little bit more, whatever you feel
Cool.
like.
Well, like I said, I'm originally from Texas. I moved up here. I had a fiance, and then we were dating long distance for years, and so I ended up moving to New York. Like I said, but my background, I played football for University of Texas. I played tons of high school sports, um, but what ended up happening was I ended up getting a concussion that caused me to stop playing football, right? Um, and then so that took me down a new path. I went through a lot of things where I was very depressed. I know a lot of us hide behind the mask of like what we do and we think that's who we are.
Right.
Um, we get caught up in like thinking that's who we are, but we're not our body. I believe we're our spirit that just experiences the world through our body. But what we do does not define ourselves. What defines us is actually our purpose and like what we do with our time, what we're actually intentional with. But anyway, I got that concussion. I had to kind of figure out what I was good at, what I wanted to do, and
Hmm.
then so that actually got me into coaching, um, and all the darkness and all the really crappy things that I went through led me to better understanding other people, so I could help them through a difficult time. So one example of that is, you know, I do a lot of calls with people. I really get to know them before I work with them, and a lot of people they'll be like, I'm just really depressed. I don't know what I stand for. They're trying to please everybody else, and they just feel kind of lost. And I'm like, well, are you depressed? And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, do you feel like you're in a well and you feel like the light's getting dimmer and you feel like you can never crawl out? And like that's exactly how I feel. No one's described it that way. How do you know? And I'm like, well, because I've been through that. Um, and I might tear up a little bit, but anyway, I'm so grateful that I went through that, and I'm so grateful that football was taken from me, even though that was the best blessing that could have ever
Right.
happened to me, because I happen to believe in God. That now that I look back on it, I understand people better, so I can help them through that and understand them at a way where if I didn't go through that, I would have never been able to help them. Because I think the best coach or teacher is someone who's been through what you've been through,
Hmm.
right? And we all go through difficult things, but I'm so grateful that I did go through a dark place where I felt like I could never crawl out, but yet I did.
Right.
And that was a season in life that I went through. And then uh, I'm the other side of that, and I'm not saying that there's not tough days or not new lessons to learn, but I'm so grateful that I went through that because, like I said, now I can help other people do the same.
So, do you feel, you say how you went through all of that and it brought you to where you are now.
Mhm.
And it has not only brought you to the top, and a lot of people think being at the top is all like money and everything like that, but I believe like being at the top is more of being mentally 100%, physically
Mhm.
100%.
Yeah.
And I think that's exactly what your purpose is, and what you're trying to achieve is to show people that there's more to life, health wise.
Yeah.
And
So when you say to the top, when you say to the top, do you is that how you define success? Is that another word for it to you?
to me, I definitely believe that if I were to state that I'm at the top, I would feel like as if I'm successful.
Hmm.
Yeah.
To be honest, I don't really feel successful. Even and I want to share my more of my background. So no matter how many accolades I got, I don't really like share a lot of these things. 'Cause I'm not a cocky person, but like coming out of high school, I got Defensive Player of the Year for Dallas Fort Worth area. Football is really big in Fort Worth, and it was a paper, so it wasn't like massive. And I got like all state, football's huge there, and I got all these accolades. But when people would call me, I'd be like, "Do you have the right number?" They're like, "Yeah, we're here to talk to Michael Wilcox." I'm like, "Are you sure?" And then people would be like, "Oh my gosh!" We'd be in a stance, and people were like, "Oh, I'm playing against you. This is so cool. You're playing at Texas, and that's a big deal." And I'm like, "Oh, thanks, but like, let's finish the game. This is kind of weird." And then after we would talk, but I would always have people come up to me and be like, "Hey, man, I really respect how you play. You know, you're very humble. You don't celebrate a lot. You treat people well." And that's always been my background. But I've never felt like, "Oh, I'm that good." I always felt like, no matter how well I've done, like I was also a top salesperson at multiple companies. I always felt like an imposter. Like I won champion circle at one of the jobs I got, and I won a trip to Costa Rica. We stayed the 4 seasons.
Wow.
Um, it doesn't to me like I've never viewed myself as other people view me.
Right.
So I guess it's good to stay humble, but at the same time, I've had to learn to give myself grace and credit where it's due. But I've always kind of had imposter syndrome, and I've noticed that most people that other people call successful,
Mm-hmm.
that's something that drives them when it comes to it. So it's a good and bad thing at the same time, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
I never looked at it that way. But since you asked me if that's just as soon as I hear at the top, I just immediately think of success or I
Hmm.
made it or I
Yeah.
feel accomplished. So I don't know if there's a fine line between feeling accomplished and um, feeling like you made it to the top. In other words, success.
Yeah.
Um, but feeling accomplished to me is very similar to success.
Hmm.
But I believe there is a fine line from that. But either way, being at the top, I would feel accomplished and
Hmm.
successful. Um, and I struggle with, feeling at all times that I'm successful. So I am waiting for the day where I can say, I've made it to the top.
Hmm.
But there's always ways to improve and to be better. So, even if I say I was at the top, I still believe that there's still room for,
Levels
yeah, I guess, or the
is the
levels
word.
don't ever stop because you just,
I don't think they do. And saying what you just said, like I agree completely because I think there's always levels because like if you think financially, you look at like someone's like, oh, I made $100,000, and then they make half a million, and then they make a million, and they're like, wait, and then they compare themselves or they surround themselves with other people, and they're like, wow, I don't really have that much success compared to other people. So obviously, like comparison can be the victim of joy, but also it can put things into perspective as well, right?
right.
And there's different levels of everything. Also, if you look at financially, but what about mentally, physically, and
Yeah.
spiritually? If you're missing one, do you really feel like you have real wealth or success?
Mm,
And the answer often, I believe, is no. Because, the most money I've ever made, like the best month I've ever made, I felt so inadequate. Even though I was helping people, and I have coaches working under me, and they were like, everybody was getting great results, all good reviews, like all those things that people tell you are going to make you happy, and you're like, wait, is this it?
right.
Like, why am I not happy in this moment? Because I was sacrificing other things. Like, I knew how to be successful at business, but I didn't know how to do it in a way where I could have grace with myself. It was like 100%, like 1,000 miles an hour, where I can't enjoy myself at all, or spending time with people I care about. Like, there's a kind of an all in or nothing mentality, which a lot of ex athletes have, like me, where they're like in season, like, and then doing nothing, like, and plus I'm ADHD, so like finding a balance between the two, I've learned to do that.
right.
But it is very, I don't think you can ever find perfect balance in life, but I think being intentional and focusing on, okay, during this season of life at this moment, what is my main focus right now that I need to work on? You
What do
know,
you think about micromanaging your life? Not
it's
saying you specifically, but have you ever micromanaged? And, what do you think about,
when you
micromanaging?
say that word, do you mean like,
Just all aspects of your life. I'm somebody that struggles with micromanaging in the way of I have to every detail I have to have organized and
okay, that
have to
makes sense.
like
Okay.
try to, and it honestly drives me crazy. I get
So
overwhelmed.
are you referring to, you feel like you have to control every aspect, and if you're not controlling it, that bothers you? You get like
Pretty
anxiety around
much,
that?
yeah.
Okay. So saying that is, I think the best thing that we can do as people is to control the things that we can control and acknowledge that there's certain things that we can't control. Okay. So,
Have you ever
so
micromanaged your life at any point?
yes, to an extent, especially with like business. So how I grew up, like we didn't have like a ton of money. We had what we needed, but that was a point of like stress. So when you learn certain things, I think there's all things that I don't like the word trigger because like a lot of people are so reactive. Um, but when you grow up a certain way, there's certain things that tend to stress us. So there's certain things that take us away from God more than others
Mm,
because maybe we grew up where like, oh, money doesn't grow up on trees. Maybe that's what we're taught, or
right.
maybe we're taught that like, sorry, I was kind of losing
It's okay.
uh, my train of thought. But I find the I'll just share my experience. The more that I try to control every aspect, I'm not as happy. The more that I observe, I have certain things that I do on a consistent basis and say I'm going to take massive, messy action and then see what the result is and then modify that. That's way better than me saying I have to do this exact way, and I like for it to be like moldable.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. So in the fitness realm, like I'm a coach, so this is the way like I like to explain things or understand things. I like to explain things in cars because I'm a car nerd.
Mm,
I'm a medical and health nerd because I used to work in the medical industry, and then I'm a health and fitness nerd. Okay, so what I mean by like if you're saying micromanage, like what I do with my clients is like, okay, let's focus on this amount of steps. Okay. Because what can be tracked can be changed.
right.
Let's focus on around this many calories or this much protein, or let's make it very simple. And what someone needs at that very moment is going to be different because if someone's coming in and they're used to tracking and they're down to a T and they can get within like 5 of carbs, protein, and fat, that's going to be different than someone who's brand new and I'm like, hey, let's just shoot for this much protein and eat around this many calories, or let's just eat 80 or 90% whole healthy foods. As you get deeper, there's different levels, right?
Mm-hmm.
So to move forward, you have to be more optimal. So saying that from a health perspective, micromanagement might be like, hey, let's focus on how much steps we're going to do, how much cardio we're going to do, how many reps we're going to do on bench or whatever. And then we're saying, and then let's look at how all these things work together and what does that add up to get this result.
Yeah.
And so now, if we're not losing weight or we're not making progress, we can add another 100 calories, or we can change one variable and then now we know what's working, what's not. So I think you should have some level of management to be able to move forward, like certain key KPIs, like maybe for my business I might reach out to so many people or make so many phone calls, or and that way I can see, am I improving on the percentage of people that want to work with me. So there has to be some level of management, but there also has to be some level of, I'm going to control what I can control. And then if this person doesn't show up to this phone call or this client's not doing this, even though I've done my part, I can't feel frustrated about it because that's the level of unknown that we can't control.
Right.
Does that make
It
sense?
does make
Yeah.
sense. For me, time management and that kind of, you keep saying the word management, and it just, as many times as you were saying management, when I think about micromanaging your life with anything, it could be sports, school,
Mm-hmm.
work. I mean, there's hundreds of things in your life that anybody can be micromanaging.
Yeah.
I've struggled with that to the point where life is already hard, and at times that I made it harder on myself. Crunch time.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that you shouldn't live a life where you feel, one, like you're walking on eggshells, or
No.
two, where you feel like you're in a crunch time.
Yeah.
So what you said definitely made a lot of sense. And why I asked you is because you going from a football player, especially in college, and having that work, and then transferring into something completely, not completely different, because you're still an athlete, you're still fitness,
Yeah.
but you're so much more in depth than just
Mm-hmm.
fitness or just a football player. So, and even you having a child, which,
Yeah. Seven
congratulations
weeks. I'll
to
be a
Mike. He's gonna
Yeah.
be a
Thanks.
dad. um, so I'm sure that you were explaining to me, earlier, a couple weeks ago, how, you're just getting everything organized,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I mean about like micromanaging your life. So, but like, you explained it to the T.
Oh,
So
thanks.
I'm
Uh,
happy I got your perspective on
yeah.
that.
Thanks. I just want to circle back to this. So I think the biggest thing is being intentional and focusing on like, out of this season, what's the most important thing, and you can still have some like other things you want to move forward with, but what is holding me back in life the most right now? So maybe it's finances. You put more weight into that, but you still may take care of your health by eating healthy and like taking a walk, but maybe you can't go to the gym 5 days a week. Maybe you can only do 2 or 3. So that way you can do,
Exactly.
that way one area doesn't suffer so much and you're still moving forward. Just like with some of my clients, like, oh, I want to work out 5 days a week and do this, this, and this. I'm like, are you a dad? Yes. Do you own a business? Yes. Or do you work for someone else and you have a team of 30 people? All right, let's just train 3 days this week and let's just focus on nutrition and this, and we can move forward at a slower pace, but this is the only thing you can handle right now.
Right.
Or you have a lot of stress in your life, we can't be as aggressive as cutting down their calories. Now they don't have a libido with their partner, they're married, that's important, right?
Right.
Or they have brain fog so they can't go to school or operate in class, or they feel so bad all the time that they can't show up for themselves because they have no energy. So what can I do? I can actually give them more food to eat, make them feel good, move forward at a slightly slower pace, but then all of their areas in life are upgraded and moving forward, but maybe they focus on one a little bit more than the others, but everything's still moving forward.
Right.
Does that make sense? But
Yeah.
a lot of people go too extreme and they can't maintain it and they wonder
So
why.
how have you ever gone to the extreme and felt like so under pressured and so
Oh
overwhelmed?
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And
With
when
business
did
I've done that before, yeah.
okay, and how long until you recognize like, oh wow, like this is already overwhelming and now I'm overwhelming myself. Time management isn't kind of in the books right now and I kind of feel overwhelmed. Like when did you realize that or how long?
Actually, like a few years ago, it's when I first started doing really well financially with my business. I was past the point where like, hey, I can do this, I can make a living. Like I took that leap and it was terrifying. And by the way, I used to stutter really bad. So I'm like, oh, I am good at sales. Like I had to go through all that. Like I forced myself to, when I was top person at multiple companies doing sales, I used to stutter so bad I couldn't talk. So I had to push that aside, like conquer that demon or whatever you want to call it. Right. And then,
How old were you when you got over
25 or 26.
how'd it feel when you finally got over that?
Uh, it
Would you
was,
call it an
it was
obstacle?
massive. Like so much so, like if I went to order, I don't go and drink a lot, but if I would go to a bar, they would look at me and be like, "What do you want?" And I'm like, and it wouldn't come out. Like if I start thinking about it, I'll stutter a little bit. But it was very paralyzing, and I had this little voice in my head. It's like, wow, how can you own a business if you can't even talk to your family on the phone? Well, it won't even come out, and it's embarrassing. But then I realized over time, well, if I just improve a little bit each and every day, and I forced myself to take a phone sales job and then became a top person in the company, that I can overcome the obstacle. So I intentionally faced that fear. And there's so many days where I wanted to call into work. My heart would be pounding out of my chest. And I was like, I hate this, but I forced myself to do it because I knew that me having the life I wanted was on the other side of this discomfort and this major perceived obstacle, this mountain that I created in my head of, oh, I can never do this. And I'm like, no. So I started reading books. Like one book is called The Slight Edge. I have all my clients read it. And it's about just improving a little bit each and every day. You know, it talks about like motivation. Where does that come from? And people are like, I don't feel like, why am I not motivated? I'm like, do you think that all these successful people that have what you have, are they a superhero with motivation? No, the difference is they recognize that if they take some action, they'll get some results, which is feedback.
Mm.
And then when they get that, and then now when they get some of the results, and people are like, wow, there's something different about you. You're more at peace, or wow, have you lost weight? Your face looks different. And they're like, oh, I feel good. People are actually noticing it because I see myself every day, and they start to see progress, and they start to see my clothes fit looser. I'm happier. I'm showing up. I have a libido for my partner again. Wow, I have more energy. Now they start to see the fruits of their labor. They did it long enough to see some results, and now they're motivated. But what happens when you pull action out of motivation? This continuum that goes in a circle: action, results, motivation. It stops. So if you stop taking action, the whole equation doesn't work
Did you
anymore.
stop taking action once you felt overwhelmed, or did you kind of take accountability of it and just find a way to kind of cope with it and get through it? Like,
So
how was your first
so,
initial
so to answer your
reaction?
question about studying, I know I kind of went off on a tangent. I'll just explain to you the timeline. So like for years, I held myself back. I was scared to even go. Football was always my job. I never done anything else. I never had a job until like I was 24, 25. And I got that job as an account manager. I managed like a $3 million book of business. And
Sheesh.
it's not a big, it's business to business, not a big deal. But anyway, I within 2 years, I became a top person. But during that time, I was terrified. And
Mm.
you know what helped me? I read that book, and I focus on what I would enjoy. So I would listen to music or something inspirational or something like people sharing their stories of where they were at and how they overcame. And I would listen to that between calls, and I would pause it right when they answered, and I would say, "Hello, this is Michael Wilcox in your Office Depot account manager." Or I was an account manager for Office Depot. We manage existing accounts, and I would literally answer the phone, but I was learning in between calls, and that calmed me down because I was working towards something while I was doing it. But then I was like, Mike, you're going to get good at it. Just keep on showing up. And then over time, that stress, that mountain that I felt like I was climbing every day, even going into work, my heart beating out of my chest, it got smaller and smaller. And now when I would show up, that hill would seem so much smaller, but I would also read audiobooks in between. So I better myself. And then so over time, just like I got a call from when I got Defensive Player of the Year, they
Mm-hmm.
called me. They're like, "Hey, Mike, we just want to inform you that you're one of the top people in the company. You want a trip to Costa Rica." I was like, "What?" And I'd been praying that I was like, "God, I don't." I saw 8 people have heart attacks and die while we were there. There's like 500 people in the building.
Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah, and so it's not a bad job, but I was just like, "This isn't my place that I want to be." It was a stepping stone. I got what I needed from it, and I was like, "God, just help me have something on my resume or something where I can build some confidence and like show me what I need to do next." So I had something enough to leave after that point, but I won that award and I asked for it, and I had no idea that I was even a top person until I got the award. I was like, oh, I just showed up, and you know
What?
that
How was you? What was your reaction? Were you like,
I was excited, but I was like, are you sure? Like, does this make sense? But you know what the only difference is? It's not hard to separate yourself. You just do the things that most people aren't willing to do. And you know one thing was, we had to make 25 phone calls,
I
and then we
feel
had
like for somebody who's like that genuine too, and works that hard and consistent, it's definitely an eye opener too.
but you know how many people would hit their talk time in 25 calls a day? Almost no one. So you know what I did? I just did the basics of what we're supposed to do, because only like out of 500 people, maybe like 30 or 40 people hit it. I just did what most people aren't willing to do, which is it's not that hard to separate yourself anymore. Most people
Right.
won't do it. So I just did that, and I was like, oh, I just need to get better every day. And I didn't care about like how much I sold that day or whatever. I over time I had like KPIs like, oh, I need to, if I'm going to hit this, I need to do $20,000 a day for the, or like whatever. I knew what it was and I could see it, the trends. But I just was like, if I make more phone calls, I'll have more conversations and I'll get better at stuttering. And then I started laying out like my conversations, like to get people to talk to you. You would say, hey, this is my type A clients because they could take notes. I'm like, this person, I'm like, hey, this will take 2 or 3 minutes of your time. And each different personality, I learned how to talk to
Yeah,
people
that's
because everyone's
awesome.
different.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's great that you were able to accomplish that because I'm sure a lot of people go through life stuttering, and if you guys have that issue, definitely take this story for motivation. And
It was bad.
like Mike said before,
Yeah.
like motivation has to do with action. A lot of people also just sit there and just say, oh, I wish I could be that, I wish I could be doing this, I wish I could, have that and have this. It's like you can't just sit there and dream and fantasize. Like each and every day you have to get up, and even if it's for a couple minutes or
People would
even
tell me that
writing
about
down a
football.
couple
I
thoughts.
would kill to be on the football team. And I would think in the middle of the season, I'm like, you wouldn't do half of what I just had to do today. Like I had like an hour to myself. Like people don't realize everybody sees the glory. And it's cool. Like what's interesting is earlier I was talking about like my best month in business I've ever had. I was so stressed out and I'm like, I prayed for this. I asked for this. And this is it. Like, why am I so stressed? Because I didn't have the skills to do it in an efficient manner where I could still live a normal life. I only knew how to grind and like run through a wall. Like I was either sprinting or like sitting, and there's no in between. And now I'm getting better in the middle, and I'm learning to do it more gracefully. But I didn't have the skill set to be efficient with my time, like we're talking about. A lot of these things I'm still learning, and just like you said, levels. There's certain skill sets that we're great with that God gave us. There's certain things that God like made us really good at. Like I'm so good at like talking to people and like relating to people. I'm very open and honest, almost too much sometimes. Where my wife is like, "You shouldn't have said that." And I'm like, well, "What are they going to use it? I don't care because
Right.
that's me." You know?
Right. And that's another thing getting through life. A lot of people, and especially during this time now, and I'm not going to say I can't stand it because I don't want to come off judgmental. I've definitely been this person as well. But you're trying too hard to get people to either see where you're coming from, see your perspective, or even to change their
Yeah.
perspective. Always stay true to who you are. If you have a goal or you have something that you want to do in life, or you feel almost like an obligation to do for yourself. Remain true to yourself no matter how hard it is. Even like Mike
Always.
said with, with his stuttering issue, you just every single day pick and poke at it and give yourself that confidence. The more that you try to kind of level out and balance with those around you and kind of like, you know, just care so much what they think or how they view, you're never going to get to your dreams because you're going to be so worried about what everybody else has to say, how everybody else is looking at you, and you're kind of going to distract yourself from the viewpoint and the perspective that you see it. Even myself, you know, just sitting in my room or sitting at work every day, like, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing with my life? Okay, Kaylee, you just brought up my mirror that's sitting behind us that I have scribbles all over. One day I whipped out one of my extra mirrors. I took an expo
Mhm.
marker and I was sick of like just sitting there and just begging myself or just dreaming of things happening without any action. So definitely don't just sit there and kind of mope around and say how you want to do things and you want to accomplish things. Definitely put action into that motivation,
And do you mind if I add something to
Yeah,
that?
go ahead.
And also, there's so many people that sit there and read books or they take tons of more classes and they never apply knowledge. Knowledge without application means nothing, or knowledge without action means nothing. It's great that, oh, my mindset's better, but you know how you get wisdom? You take action, you get feedback on it, you know what works or what doesn't. Just the same thing as like some people have been burned before in relationships and they're so scared to put themselves out there that they never can move forward. Like, I want love, I want
Right.
this. Well, great. Well, how many are you going on dates? Are you talking to different people? And they
Right.
never put themselves out there. You cannot let the past dictate your future.
Or
Now you can learn from it, but you can't just make assumptions. Our brain wants to protect ourselves, and we have to be willing to be uncomfortable. And when you talk about success, there are times where I was on my hands and knees. I was like, God, I need help. If you don't want me to train clients, slam the door in my
and
face
I'm
because
gonna
I'm
come
struggling.
and I'm gonna
You know.
compare to what you just said about like relationship and dating or whatever. I'm gonna compare that to the Bible, guys. If I were to pick up my Bible right now, you'd see all my post-its and everything like that. And I'm not before I get all spiritual, but a quick little example is for so long, just and you said with knowledge, I was
Mhm.
reading the Bible but I wasn't highlighting. I wasn't annotating. I wasn't leaving, notes on little post-its and really understanding the Bible. So it's even when people were asking me questions, I had no knowledge behind that. So it's just like same with a relationship.
Mhm.
You normalized in the relationship that you were in for so long, or friendship or family dynamics. Like it could be whatever, and you're caught up in that for so long. Yeah, you kind of forget what it's like to
You
kind of
also think
venture out
you
and
also think your family dynamic is how the world operates. It's not.
exactly. And
No,
also, I'm going to add on to
I'm not
that.
talking about yours in particular,
No, but I
but
might as well add on to
all
that.
this stuff is what we know. And when you're meeting people, they come from a different background, so you have to understand them, where are they coming from. And a relationship's is not always easy all the time. Like I've been married for a few years. It's not like, oh, it's just roses and what the world tells you a relationship should be. A lot of it's BS. It's not. It's a commitment. It's working through things. Now
Right.
there are still certain deal breakers, like what values do you share? But a lot of you want to be in a relationship, but at the end of the day, you don't know what you stand for. So one of the first things me and my wife talked about is like, do you want to have kids? Yes. How are we going to raise them? Okay, in a church. She happens to be Catholic. I'm not Catholic, but I was like, to me, it's about relationship with God. So you know what? At its core, that's fine as long as we raise our kids in the church. That's what I cared about.
And that's amazing that you can compromise. And because
But
I
I knew who I
have,
was when I went into it. A lot of people don't. Is the
right.
issue.
And honestly, for that, I have grown up in such like an uptight type of family that say
Mhm.
that was me and I'm Christian and I was with someone that's Catholic. Like now I could probably compromise,
Yeah.
but until I really recognize that part of me, knowing myself truly, I probably wouldn't have just been so quick to be like I probably would have put up a fight to be
Yeah.
married into a Christian, church or to have my
I
my
also had
children
questions too,
raised in a
though.
Christian
Yeah.
household.
Yeah.
Um and so back to the family dynamic thing too. My parents being very uptight, it makes it very hard, or it made it very hard for me to even be in a relationship because we normalize how our family dynamics are. And for my parents being so uptight, or so controlling, that's kind of it affected my
Well, it shapes you.
relationships. It
Yeah, it
literally,
shapes you.
and if you don't put a stop to that or you don't recognize this, like those flaws, and it's not your fault because, you've got kind of been almost brainwashed in a way that, you know, like you said, that's how you look at people, and it's not right. It's kind of selfish, and it stops you from having an open mind. It stops you from having relationships and
Hmm.
friendships. It stops you from your future job that you're supposed to be happy, that should be happening to you. It becomes a very closed mindset. So stay true to yourself. If you've had hardships like through your life or with your family, don't normalize that. Don't put that on other people. Allow it to happen. Allow people and things to take accountability for their own actions.
Hmm.
Allow life to happen. Life is situational. Same with Mike here. He was a whole football player, a college football player, and his whole life changed when he finally realized who he is and what he wants in his life. And it was definitely a journey.
That was the best thing that happened is I stopped playing football.
And it seems like
Concussions was good. Yeah.
it really opened you up to who you are, and like not even just on the outside, it opened up you mentally,
Hmm.
emotionally,
Yeah.
spiritually. It opened you up in every way that you would think that a person can give you that. A lot of people like think that a relationship or something, if you can't find that within yourself, if you can't
100%.
struggle and go through what Mike went through and all these obstacles, if you think that somebody should sweep you off your feet, or you think that some God's supposed to just
No one's going to
vanish
save you
it,
like that.
you
Now,
can't.
now, are there miracles? Yes, but you still have to do your part. Like, just like that saying, like, "Hey, be careful what you pray for." Like, if I
Right.
ask God, "Hey, I'm about to be a dad," I'm like, "Hey, I want to be a great leader." I know my son. We feel like we're gonna have a boy. We don't know. It's gonna be a surprise. But I'm like, whether it's my son or daughter, they're gonna see everything that I do, and I'm really aware.
Exactly.
And I still have some bad habits. Like, none of us are immune. We're always learning and growing. I don't care how much money you have, what relationship, like whatever. There's always areas that we can improve on,
Always. I
right?
live by that.
And the thing is, I think saying that we should be happy where we're at and live in gratitude, because I think those emotions, and I don't want to sound woo woo, but like I think frequencies, like spiritually, when we're at peace, and where peace comes from is being 100% true to ourselves,
Hmm.
or pursuing that and figuring out who we are and actively doing that, kind of like reading your Bible. And I'm not trying to like push religion. Like, to me, it's just your connection with God or a higher power. But when you're truly at peace, is you being 100% yourself, you working on the things that you're not great at, but also, I don't like the word living your truth, because there's certain things that are just fundamentally true.
Hmm.
But like, if there's something that doesn't jive with you about a person like you're dating, it's not like, either learn and communicate with them. But there's certain things, like, if something's inherently wrong, don't just accept it. It might be time for you to move on.
I'm going to add
You
on
know?
to this, and I'm
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you. This is a core problem that I've even suffered from. It's like when you want something so bad, and this is the part where it's called growing up and being mature,
Yeah.
is literally being okay with something not working out. It could be a job, it could be specifically a
It's
relationship,
all how you view it.
but it is really your perspective on it. But that's a huge thing that takes
Yeah.
a toll on people, and I've struggled with it, and that's why I wanted to like kind of tap into that, where I wanted it so bad that like, and this is where me not putting my faith into God, me just putting faith into myself, that
Yeah.
I have full power over the situation, that I can change and control this
I
situation.
did the same thing
And the truth is that
for a
once
long
you,
time.
yeah, me
Yeah.
too, I just started recognizing this honestly. So
Hmm.
that's why I'm just like happy
I
that
know
you
you
said
told me the
that.
other day at the gym.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it really does take a toll on you.
Do you mind if I share my story behind that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I noticed, like, with patterns or with relationships, like, I had someone that I dated for like years when I was really young, and certain things happened where I was angry and I didn't trust people. I'm not gonna say what it is. I don't need to go into it.
Right.
And that happened when I was in college. And so any relationship after that, I was really guarded, and it took me a while to get over that. But I always used to be a people pleaser and try to make other people happy. But the issue when you do that is you make everyone else, they seem to make you improve their lives, but you're the only one not happy. So you're constantly giving, and then now your cup is so empty, you have nothing left to give. That's common with most of my clients. They feel selfish if they do something with, well, if I'm taking care of myself, then I'm not taking care of them. No, that's not true. Let me ask you, if you keep your cup full, how much more do you have to pour into other people?
Right.
So often in dating, the best thing I could have done is, I saw a pattern. I kept on talking to different people and doing all this stuff. And finally I was like, you know what, God, I suck at picking people. I'm not going to try anymore. If you want me to meet someone, please help me. I'm just going to work on myself. And what's interesting, I didn't realize what I was doing, but now I look back on it. until I remember I was talking about peace earlier.
Right.
Until I was at peace and I knew what I stand for and I know what things I was looking for. Once I had that, I started attracting people that also had peace, that were happy with where they're at. Because if you live a chaotic life, it doesn't mean your life has to be perfect. But if you're not happy and you have all these question marks, you'll tend to attract those people around you, and then you attract who you are, not what you
Yes.
want.
And it's
That's the thing with
honestly,
everything.
people think that this is almost like made up or
It's
spiritually
true.
made. This is scientifically proven. Okay,
And there's a
scientifically,
spiritual component. They're separate, but they
there
work
is,
together.
but
Yes.
like being human, like having that, like it is just scientifically proven that if you want to be wake up and be negative, like I'm gonna give you an example. I was just in the airport and I just heard this mother to her little like she must have been like 6 years old, just like the nagging and like the horrible negative things to the point where I'm not a confrontational person, but also like, I want, or maybe I could have left a mark on this person by letting her know, like, you know what? I turned around, I was like, you know what? I hope you have a better day. You know, maybe not spread around all of that negativity. I mean, it was 30 minutes of pure negativity in the back of my ear. It genuinely rubs off on other people. It rubs off on other people, it affects other people, and that's what you will attract. And it will make your future and your goals kind of slow down because these people are not the type of people that are going to come in your life and be positive and give you like a positive asset. These are the people that are probably going to prey on your downfall. So always be sure to be a positive person and leave a positive mark on other people. And I genuinely believe that's my purpose too. And I've
Yeah.
struggled. I've been a bully once. I've been mean before. I've been cocky before.
We all have. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's we're human and it's situational. But once you take accountability and once you're able to recognize that, you can be the nicest person or claim to be the nicest person and then you catch yourself slipping up gossiping about someone or being involved in drama. But the point is kind of like isolate yourself from that negativity and don't fall into that. Even with the obstacles in your life, I'm sure that you've had days where you were like, ugh, and you just kind of wanted to lose
There's
your
days where I
shit.
thought nothing would ever change, but you know what? When I just showed up anyways, and also when you show up anyways, you have a new default reaction to problems or challenges, right? So like
Mm-hmm.
if someone's doing really well, like on a diet and they're losing weight, and then every time they get stressed, they go binge eat. Well, next time, every time you have an opportunity in the future where stress happens, you
Right.
can change that story. It's hard. But once you change that and you say, no, I'm not the person that's going to eat my feelings. Instead, I'm going to do something that serves me, and you replace that activity with something else that serves you to move you forward. Now you can feel good. And you're like, wow, that was hard, but I ate half of what I used to do when I binged. I'm still
And
moving
it's
forward.
not easy. Like, it literally sounds so easy, but it's not. But like, do something about it.
Yes.
Do something about
Small
it.
changes make a massive difference over time.
I've
Yeah.
never, even start recording yourself. I've caught myself complaining about the same thing to the point where that's
Yeah.
where I whipped out the mirror. I whipped it out, and that's why I wrote on it because I'm just like I'm complaining about the same things.
Especially when
You
you
know,
start to ask yourself the question, okay, if I'm complaining about it, if I take a step back and I'm objective, what am I actually doing about it? Because remember, action's the only thing that changes. So if I keep
action
on
into
complaining,
motivation.
what are you putting your energy into? Are you putting it into solutions of being a solution-oriented person? That's what I teach my clients really
Well,
as
this was what
for.
I was
Or do
just.
you put it into complaining, which this does nothing but just perpetuate the same
Well, I was
thing?
just about to say I put so much time into people pleasing
Yeah.
and like so much time that I wasn't even realizing it. That to the point where I did start opening my Bible, it came to a point where I'm like, you know what? I'm supposed to be different. I'm supposed to be focusing on something else right
Mm-hmm.
now. So once I did start investing my time into school, boom, I'm in school now. I'm almost done with my first semester. I'm on my fifth episode of my podcast. I have Mike, which I've been
Mm-hmm.
honestly so excited and honored to have on my
Well,
podcast.
thank you.
Um, but for this exact thing, because I've sat down and had these conversations about financial, um, peer pressure, people pleasing, relationships, you know, just being so desperate for unwanted or unnecessary things in your life, making your life harder than it really needs to be. When you are negative, you literally make those goals and everything in your life feel like it's a million miles away when it's literally sitting in front
We
of your
usually get it
face.
in our own
And
way.
you said that to me about the
Yeah.
money thing, about like debt. People make it seem because they dig themselves deeper. And that's why I took a 24-hour trip to Miami. Anybody who complained to me, I'm like, you literally live, and I looked at them and they couldn't even argue with me. I was like, you live in fear. Every day you wake up, you're worrying about money, you're
Yeah,
worrying about this, you're worrying
yeah.
about that. You know what? I don't want to wake up like that because it will make me negative. It will make
But
me
also, if you have
miserable.
those same thoughts and emotions, what dictates our actions, though? Let's take it a step further. One reason I like the book so much is what dictates our actions. Well, we get to dictate that, but a lot of it is subconscious things that we don't even think about. So think about like you have a computer, you have your Mac, right?
Right.
Or a computer or a PC.
Okay.
All right, the software is what tells the hardware what to do, right? So the
Mm,
software is in here, in here, and in here, right? So we have to reprogram the software. So that's our default of like what we go to. Remember, I was talking about like if you normally binge eat, you have an opportunity if there's stress to change that. You're redoing your software of what you do automatically.
yeah.
But initially, it's going to be uncomfortable because you have to make an effort to do it, but over time that's what a habit is, right?
Right.
So how do we change our subconscious? By who we surround ourselves with,
Mhm.
the shows that we watch, and all those dictate our habits, and our habits and actions dictate our result. So the biggest thing for many of you, if you want change, you have to take a step back and look at the big picture and be honest. The first step is being honest and being real, and it hurts sometimes if you're like, I'm so overweight, I look fat as shit, or like I don't cuss a lot, but you're like, what am I? How did I get here?
Yeah.
Or I've been so negative. I don't. After this relationship, I fell apart. I started drinking, or whatever it is. Being honest and acknowledging where you're at, and having that sobering reality, and say, okay, I'm going to remove all the things that are my crutches, and I'm just going to be grateful for what I have because you know what? I can choose to go up or backwards, but staying the same, that's not an option right now.
And a story that I can compare that to, back in 2023 when I was hit by a car, I still use it till this day, guys. I mean, I'm going to say it, bitch, please move on. You know, and everyone was like, Haley, like, you were religiously in the gym. And anybody who knows me, I was religiously in the gym. I was like this close to even wanting to get certified as a personal
I bet you
trainer.
were mad, right, for a while. You're like, why did
For
this
a
happen to me?
while,
It'd
I
be
was
easy.
angry, I was sad, and I'm sorry this offends people sometimes, so maybe I shouldn't use this word, but I literally felt like helpless laying in a bed. You know, I had to crawl to the bathroom, 4 in the morning, literally crying, crawling to the bathroom, just literally heartbroken that I couldn't even work out. And you know what? They say 30 days to build a habit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, 30 days to build a habit and 30 days to break a
And
habit.
scientifically, sometimes it even shows longer, but there's a spectrum. But yeah,
Yeah, so
yeah, you're not
for
wrong.
me, when I had gotten into this horrible accident, I had a whole month of laying in my bed. And I'm not gonna lie, I was smoking my bong. I was watching nothing but
Stop it.
TV.
That's right.
I was though. I was eating, I wasn't I kind of lost myself. I
I used to
lost
have
my
that habit too
self-esteem.
a long
Yeah,
time
and
ago.
people think it's relationships or other things like I've had an apartment flood before, which was heartbreaking, but this accident was heartbreaking. It took a piece of me, it took my car, it took money from me, it took a lot from me. And that whole month of me just being in that mopey, my room, just not opening my blinds, TV, smoking weed, like doing all these things that just like made me feel crappy.
Mm-hmm.
And I fell into that habit to the point where I was back on my feet. I was like, oh, wow.
When that excuse is pulled out, you're probably doing the same thing for a while, right?
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
literally, I was just like, oh my gosh, to the point where now I'm like fiending to get back into fitness. It's like I know what to do,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just like that cycle that you were talking about, like no action and it's
You know what?
straight. Why don't I have fitness?
I always say it's like this loop, like a lot of people get into. Oh, I'll do it tomorrow. Or you have a little success. Oh, but
You guys seen
I
that
have this.
TikTok? Oh, tomorrow, tomorrow.
Yeah, yeah,
That's literally
but do you know the
me.
issue? Every time you say tomorrow, how much more anxiety and friction do you have to move forward? Because that mountain that was this big gets bigger and bigger. Maybe you have more debt, and you're like, wait, it's going to take this long, and it's harder and harder to face. So the sooner you face it, the sooner that shrinks down to a hill, like that analogy I use, because that's how it is. Or most people are like, oh, I'll do it. Like they're like 3 weeks in the program and they've done a little bit, but I'm like, you keep on saying you're going to do this. And the thing is, I can lead them to water, but I can't make them drink.
What was your biggest hill? Your biggest one?
Stuttering was really big for me. I actually used to smoke a lot when I was in college, but I used it because after I got my concussion, I was really depressed, and I always look at things objectively. Like I don't think every single thing is bad. I think for the most part, it's not great for most people. Let's be real. Some people use it to sleep or whatever it is, but the way I look at things is I look at objectively, like, is this serving you right now in your life? Maybe in the past it did. Or people are like, oh, I drink on the
Wait, so
weekend.
smoking was your biggest hill?
For me, because for me, what would happen is if it was 2 weeks, even if I had a little bit at night, it would make me really depressed. And then I wasn't as warm to people, and I didn't want to be. I felt a lot more selfish, and I would turn inward, and it would like turn me. That's how it affected me, and I didn't realize it
How
for a long time. I
long
was
did that last for?
probably years when I was younger. I don't tell a lot of
Years.
people. Yeah, after I stopped playing football, a lot of people on the team treated me a lot different because I was still on scholarship working for the team.
How old were you when you stopped football?
I graduated like 20. I was like 21 or 22.
So that's kind of
Like I
like,
was like 20 when I stopped, and then I was on medical scholarship for like 2 years.
so what did you do after you kind of realized that this was becoming like a big problem for you? What did you do and what was the follow-up chapter of your life?
First off, I did that a few times where I would smoke a little bit, but it was like just at night and things like that. But um, I would just first off, I don't sleep well. Like it's harder for me. Insomnia runs in my family, so I don't have that. But um, and I've done a lot of research on ADHD, and like you release melatonin 2 to 3 hours delayed compared to a normal person. So like I have my own protocol now, but all the things I said I would use it for, it would become something else. You know, over time,
Right.
we're like, oh, I need this, but it's not.
Yeah.
But uh, I don't really know like a certain age. That just I'll just say that held me back a long time. And even when I was coaching with my business initially, I was doing really well helping people, but there was always a little voice in my head. It's like, oh, you do this. How can you lead people? And it was not that I wasn't doing my job or doing well in life. It was the fact that it was harder for me to stop than I told myself. And that bothered me because I always felt like I wasn't fully free.
So you felt like as if it was almost taking a part of your free will, so you wanted to reassure yourself that you always have that control over yourself.
Yes,
Okay.
but saying that, also I realized that because like I have ADHD, you have less dopamine than a normal person, and so
Okay.
you release a lot when you smoke, right? So for me, what would happen is if I did that for a week or two, even just at night, like one puff, like not even a lot,
Right.
I would feel really depressed and sad, and I wasn't motivated. I just was like, "Wow, life is going good, but why do
And
I
you
feel
kept
this way?"
doing it even though it was making you feel
But,
that way, or you weren't
but
realizing it.
I learned that over time. But the issue is when you stop for like 3 or 4 weeks, your sleep sucks. You don't go into REM sleep. There's a lot of negative things about it that people don't talk about. They only talk about the positives, like, oh, it relieves stress or does this. But no, like if you have less dopamine than a normal person, you're blasting through it at night, and the next day, how do you think you feel?
Yeah,
You
no,
don't
I
feel
know
good.
somebody that literally can't sleep at night. Like
No.
he even had to start taking
And by the way,
melatonin.
I wasn't doing it all day. I'm talking about like a hit or two right before I went to sleep.
It's like drinking a Celsius or a coffee an hour before bed. You're not going to fully go to sleep. You're not.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I know what you
and
mean.
I'm just sharing, and but this is a perfect point. Just like I said, does something serve you any longer? So it did help me during certain times in my life, but after a certain point, I also felt like I was talking to God, and God always like, Mike, if you want to achieve the things, like I want to speak in front of a lot of people. There's a lot of dreams that I still have, and you want to own a big company, you want to do all this. You say, but this little one thing, why are you having so much trouble letting go? It was like a negative thing in the corner of my mind. I'm like, I know I need to change this for me to move forward at a higher level.
How'd you feel once you did? Uh, I
Oh,
want
way
to ask you
better,
two questions.
way better.
Physically, how'd you feel? And then mentally and spiritually, how accomplished or how proud of you? How proud were you of yourself? Because I would be freaking proud.
Extremely, because it was more difficult than I care to say. I don't tell a lot of people about it. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm like really open about things.
I used to be ashamed to be talking about this stuff, but that's the problem.
But you know how many people
Right.
can relate to this right now?
That's what I'm saying. We
That's
need
why I
to
talk
be
about it.
more personable.
Yeah.
Stop trying. Sorry, I did just cut you off, but this is so important. This if you're so worried about what people think and care about what people think, it will stop you from being a personable person.
I care more about the impact it has on other people. That's what I focus on.
Yeah.
But also, that's because I know where my heart comes from when I share these things.
You're genuine.
Well, yeah, I try to be, but what I guess I am. But
Some people are no, some people are cocky and just like to tell people like because they're Mr. Know-it-all or they're Mrs.
yeah,
Know-it-all. You're just very informative, personable, and just genuine. So
yeah.
like that word genuine really does
Well,
matter.
I've been humbled by God in life a lot, so that helps.
Yeah.
you know, but but to answer your question, like how to make me feel, great. Just like felt good. I sleep substantially better. I didn't sleep great last night. There's going to be days like that.
Well, you got a baby coming, so
Yeah, I
get
know.
ready,
I
Dad.
know. But but I have way more good days than bad now. I just trust myself more because there's certain things that we know we need to let go of, and then we'll read facts. And I'm very like logical, and I'm very spiritual too. But like logical side, well, science says this isn't bad, and then I'll always come back to that. But then I know mentally and emotionally, I'm like, I know that I do
Yeah.
better, and plus physically, I'd recover better. I just breathe better. I just overall feel better. I feel more on point, and
I'm
then
sorry. I just think that's so freaking awesome that, that you can commit to yourself like that because it's something that I struggle with.
yeah,
It's not easy. So, and like you said, there are going to
life
be
isn't easy.
things
It's
that
okay.
humble you. So even when life feels like it's going great, just always remember what Mike and I said. There's always room to do better and be better. So even when you feel like life is going great, stay humbled because for us, we believe that we believe we'll be humbled by the big man upstairs. So,
Also, I want to share something about that.
yeah,
There's
sure.
been so many times in life where I'm like, oh, I got this. I'm doing so well. And I don't talk to God quite as much. It's not like I don't acknowledge Him. And I don't want to be the kind of Christian that, oh, I just go to God when I need something. Because a lot of people are. But the
They
thing is,
are.
where do you think that peace comes from? Where do all good things come from? It comes from Him. And if it says God is love, if you don't know God, do you know true love or what the world tells you?
Right.
Think about it.
No, I do
Oh,
think
but
about
love is
that.
love. Love is this. Like there are a lot of things, and I'm not. I work with so many different type of people. I don't judge people. I don't care what sex or whatever anyone is. If someone asks like spiritually like what I think of it, I'll be like, well, it says this, but I'm never going to attack someone. Or I work with a lot of different people.
Since we are talking about this, I am going to bring this up because this is something else that I've walked on eggshells talking about.
Yeah.
But you know what? We're going to talk about it. But my grandfather was a pastor. He's retired now,
Mm-hmm.
but he's a pastor of this church. And two women who were gay came in and they immediately felt judged. And they immediately felt judged because of the things that people say,
Mm-hmm.
how they perceive the word of God, and how they perceive God in general.
Also, the word is mis. A lot of people misconstrue it because they don't look at the context of when it was written is also important in the intent when like a letter from Paul sent to someone else like it all a lot of people don't read enough to understand the
Right,
context
or
of it.
they just read a quick little part of it and they make up this whole big scenario or story in their head. But the point
And you
is,
can't take a snippet. You can't do it.
yeah,
Yeah.
the point is I've learned unconditional love through my foundation. And my foundation is not my parents. My foundation are
Mm-hmm.
my grandparents who have just always kept my relationship with God very close. They've always taught me everything I needed to know morally, with just manners, everything like that. But these two women came to my grandfather after the sermon and they said, you know, does God accept us for who we are? And my grandfather was like, of course. Like, of course he does. He loves you guys for exactly who you are. And there was a man in the church that came up to my grandfather and was like, why are they in here? And my grandfather
I don't
genuinely
think
looked
that's
at this
right.
man and says, did Jesus ever judge? And it says in the Bible that Jesus never came
What does
here
it say
to
in James? It
judge.
says don't judge other people
Right, or in
unless
John.
you're perfect. You're not
Right.
like.
Or even in the book of John.
Now, I think it's okay to say if it says certain things are a sin in the Bible to acknowledge a fellow brother and say, hey, this is what it says. But here's the thing: do we all sin? Is doing that not the same thing as sleeping with someone before you're married?
You're right.
It's the same thing. So why can you say, oh, my sins are less than yours? It's not. You can't do that.
It's not.
No.
And after I finish this story, I'm going to tell you another little
Yeah.
clip of story. But really quick, my point is then they had asked my grandfather, do you accept us, as our pastor in this church? He says, of course I do. As they continue to go to the church, one of the wives, and they were CEOs of this
Yeah.
corporation, and they lived together.
I'm from Austin, or I lived in Austin 15 years, so I have a lot of different people
Yeah.
that I know.
And,
Yeah.
and this woman went to a retreat on her own. My grandfather never convinced her or told her things to convince her. She just came to church every Sunday and she wanted to go on this retreat. And she went on this retreat and she came back. She had broken up with her girlfriend, said that this isn't the lifestyle that she wanted to
Yeah.
live. But the whole point of that is that's what this life should be, not judging each other. Because you're right. Everybody's a sinner. There's even a story in the book where this woman committed adultery. The disciples brought her to Jesus and was like, she committed this horrible sin. She needs to be stoned. So Jesus says, okay,
Not the kind of stone we were
whoever,
talking about earlier,
yeah,
obviously.
right.
No.
Whoever in this room has never sinned before, stay in the room and you stone her. Everyone left the room because everybody is a sinner.
Yeah.
So none of us have the right to judge each other. None of us have the right to kind of just convince or manipulate other people into thinking a certain way or being a certain
But
way.
also think about what part of what what lesson have you learned that maybe they haven't, or what are some things that you can learn from that person that they're good at that you're not? That's the thing. We're all in different parts of our journey. So, like for me to deny someone because I don't agree, and I'm not talking about this particular topic that we're talking about.
Everybody's going to disagree, so why not find things to agree on?
At the end of the day, and plus, if you're supposed to witness to someone, if you say, "Oh, well, you know what? When you do everything right, then I'm going to talk to you," like that's a hypocrite.
It's
Like
conditional love. That's
it
not
doesn't.
unconditional love.
No, no. But you know what? The best thing you can do is be an example to other people. Also, you're talking about how your emotions and like your aura affects other people.
Yes.
Showing up and listening to people, maybe being the only person that acknowledges that person. You know how many times I've been at Chipotle? I know it sounds country, Chipotle. Anyway, uh,
Chipotle.
it's funny. Like one week, I got free Chipotle for a week, and I'm just always nice to people, and I like to use their name. And they all get. I don't know if they teamed up and did it, but like they're like, you're the only person that says my name, and like you genuinely care. Just like doing something so small, and obviously it's irrelevant getting free Chipotle. I'm not telling you to do that, but I'm always saying that doing something so small can make someone's day. It does not require a lot of thought or energy to do something so small, or just saying, "Hey, how are you doing?" You know
It
how many?
shouldn't. It
No.
shouldn't.
Do you know how many people I've talked to and just said, "Hey, how are you doing?" And then I'll ask God. I'm like, "Please speak through me today." And I'm not a Bible thumper. I don't push God on people. I'm just like a lot of my clients. I'm like, "Hey, do you mind if I pray for you?" And no one's ever told me no. And if they don't believe it, I'll be like, "Hey, you can believe whatever you want. You can say it's universe. I believe it's God or Jesus. I
Yeah.
do." But I think the biggest thing is just doing some act of compassion to show that, hey, not everyone's just selfish. Someone actually cares out there. It goes so far. And then imagine how many times you've had a bad day and one person's like, hey, how are you doing? And
Right.
genuinely just like that one day, like we talked to the gym, that's why I'm here today. Like I
Yeah.
didn't expect it to happen. That helped me just as much as it helped you,
Exactly.
you know?
And it's leading. It really is leading by example. Also, I've even had a friend. She's still my friend, but anytime, because of her own insecurities, anytime that she saw somebody, that was really pretty, she'd be like, ugh, just like roll her eyes at literally just at nothing.
It's a reflection of her, not the
And
people.
I turned around and I didn't
Yeah.
I wasn't hostile with her, but I was just like, I genuinely asked her, I'm like, why? Like I think she's drop dead gorgeous. And you know what? I didn't judge her. I just simply asked her why. I wanted to know her perspective on what was wrong with this young, pretty female. And I was able to open her mind to be like, you know what? That was so unnecessary of me. You know, a lot of you guys would be like, either not say anything, which that's just as bad as agreeing with somebody, but, or even to like agree with that person and enable. It always comes back to like being true to yourself, being authentic, having morals, and just having goals, dreams, being okay with your own presence and
Actual
your own
values
peace.
too, knowing
Yeah,
what you
you
stand
need
for.
to.
Yeah.
If you're not going through life with dreams and values, a lot of people will literally try to stomp on just my dreams. They just tell me that I fantasize, but you want to know the truth. What the truth is that nobody else sees the way that I see the world. Nobody else sees the way that I see my future. And that's what's so dope about this
Also,
life.
no one knows what planet they see you as you are now. They don't know what you can become. And you know what? God places things on your heart sometimes for a reason. And if it's
Yeah.
negative, that doesn't come from God.
No, I believe
But
that.
let me ask you, why did I used to have dreams about speaking in front of a lot of people, not glorifying myself, but helping people when I used to stutter so bad I couldn't talk? Why is that? Why did I take a phone sales job when I couldn't even talk to my own family?
Right.
And what gave me the bravery to do that?
And that's why I love the
I'm just
whole book
telling
of
you.
John, because like it's all of like the miracles. The blind man, he spits in the mud, rubs it on, like,
And also look who God used.
I
Some of the worst
know.
people, he helped them do the greatest things because with just our flesh, without God, we're sinners, but the only person that can save us is Jesus, period. And that's how it works. That's the beauty of it. And we try to make it so complicated, and the world's going to be like, oh, you're fine. But no, I don't think it works that way. I
Yeah.
don't.
And before
Also,
we
I don't like prosperity gospel. You don't do things just to get things.
right, I
But
believe that
no,
too.
but
And before we sadly end this podcast, you know, I do want to say that, we're not trying to convince you guys or tell you guys who you
I
need
didn't
to
even know we
go
were going to talk about
to.
God alive. Just came up.
Yeah,
Yeah.
honestly, it just was meant to be that we spoke about it. But if it's not God, then find peace just like truly within yourself.
Mhm.
Find peace in this world. Find a couple hobbies. Literally find a positive peace in your life. Don't live in misery. Don't live in negativity.
It's a
Don't
choice.
live in that same circle of saying that you're going to do something. For so long, I said I was going to do this podcast to the point where it's embarrassing. People are like, you haven't even made like a YouTube
And you also
channel.
lose trust with yourself, and then
Right. You
and
start
then like that
lying
said,
to
that mountain,
yourself.
it gets started, it gets bigger and bigger, and then
Yeah, and you start lying to yourself. And once you start,
yeah.
it's one thing to lie to somebody else, but once you start lying to yourself, you know, you're really losing yourself. So, Mike couldn't have said it enough. Stay true to who you are and take accountability or just recognize your flaws, recognize your trauma, but like take a hold of it. We're grown men and women. And for the younger crowds out there, one day you will be a man and one day you will be a woman. And you got to have goals for yourself. You can't sit in your own misery. You can't sit with your back up against the wall and be comfortable with that. There's so many obstacles that I've been through. There's so many obstacles that Mike has been through.
And there'll be more, and
And
that's
there's
okay.
more, but the longer you wait, that hill is going to get higher and higher. And no matter what, you'll get over that hill. But don't complain about life. Life is hard. Life is hard. Well, girl, of course it's going to be hard, and you're making it harder on
Also,
yourself.
think about this: if y'all want to be more successful and you want to make more money, you want to have better relationships, all of it requires work, and it doesn't necessarily get easier.
Yeah.
The perception of ease might get better as you grow and become a better leader, but be careful what you ask for, because when you ask for more, there are more responsibilities.
Yeah.
There are, but that's okay. Don't be afraid of it. But you're capable of so much more. And if you're sitting there and you're like, I don't know what to do, I just feel stuck. That's all right if you feel that way. Don't feel negative. But the only thing you can control is taking action and doing something small today. What's something small? Maybe it's just waking up and going to sleep on time. And you know what? I know that may sound stupid, but you do that one thing, or me just quitting smoking a tiny amount at night.
Well, I keep complaining
It's
how
small things.
yeah,
It's
like on
not.
my vision board, guys, I've like accomplished a lot off my vision board, but I have like a little like phone that says 5 a.m. It's like a 5 a.m. alarm clock.
Yeah.
And it's just like I could be doing that to work on a routine of how to wake up earlier in the morning. It's just by trying, even if it's waking up 5 minutes earlier than waking up, at least you're doing something or I'm doing
So,
something
so, so,
each
so my
day.
question for you is, when are you going to do that?
You know what? I'm gonna start tonight.
Tonight?
I'm gonna set that alarm clock even if it's just 10 minutes earlier than usual. And each
So,
day,
so, so when you hear it, you heard it here. When I see her at the gym, I'm going to ask her about it now. And when you have
we're
good
gonna
people in your life, like you have to keep each other accountable. All right, so I'm going to ask you about it tomorrow.
yes, you do need to keep your friends and your loved ones accountable, because some people need that
There's a
little
difference between
boost.
judgment, and then there's a difference between saying something to someone, hey, you said this. All right, you don't have to be a jerk, but there's a difference between judgment and
Just reminding
pointing things. Yeah,
somebody
yeah.
of their goal.
But you said this. Well, I wanted the cake. It was
Yeah.
good.
And that's part of being grown too. And before I ask, I have one last question to ask
Yeah.
you. You know, I do see this a lot, and I've struggled with it when because I can be very sensitive. But when a friend or somebody comes to you that very very much cares about you, with the truth and is just being brutally honest for your own good, you have to be able to have an open mind, because
Mhm.
if you don't have an open mind, you will be very sensitive and you will push people away that only mean well towards you.
Yeah.
So again, there's difference between judgmental friends, and then there's difference between friends that literally care and
And there's
want
a
you to be
right and a
accountable.
there's also a right time to bring things up, and
Right.
I call it discernment. And it actually talks about in the Bible, there's a gift of discernment, knowing when it's right. If someone's, you always say like bend not break. If someone's about to break and they're like on their edge, like let them like calm down maybe when you
Even the
talk to
book
them.
of Job. I'm sorry, I don't know if you've read the book of Job, guys. And then seriously, last one. But the book of Job. Job got stripped of everything: his kids, his house, his farm, animals, servants, everything stripped from him. And his friend, even his wife, was like, when, like, won't you just curse God and die already? Like, and then he was like, you foolish woman. But then his friend, at the time where his skin is ripping apart, he's sick, he lost everything, his health, everything's gone. His friend's like, oh, what did you do? You must have done something real bad to have done this. But like, the whole point is, don't knock someone when they're already down.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
But he still had faith.
He still had faith.
And one of the biggest things, if you're struggling right now, is knowing or just having faith that things will get better, even if you know and you can't see it.
Say that one more time. Say it one more time, loud
The
and clear.
biggest thing is having faith. And when I talk about that well, and so I'm tearing up, when I felt like I was in the bottom and the light was getting dimmer and dimmer, what I mean by that is I felt like it was never going to change. Like I'm in a tunnel and I'm never going to climb out. But just moving forward each and every day, even if it feels like you're barely moving, that is what it takes. And I actually made a real.
That's your testimony. That's
Yeah.
your testimony. Thank you
Yeah.
for sharing
No, you're
with
welcome.
us.
But I felt that way, and I felt like a loser. I felt like no girls like me when I was single. Like a lot of you always felt, but from the outside, I looked like I had everything. But I was struggling inside, and until I worked on myself and took a step back, I'm like, I'm not going to date people. I'm just going to figure it out. And then randomly, I pop on my phone, my wife's profile pops up. I'm like, oh, she's in New York. I'm never going to go
Guys,
there.
he told me this story, and
No,
I love
it's
love
crazy.
stories.
But literally, when I was like, I'm not trying anymore. I just worked on myself, and when I met my wife's, I'm not gonna say critical, but if I would have met her before I worked on myself, she would have never dated me. And you know what she said when she met me? She's like, "There's something different about you. I trust you. You have a warm heart, but you're at peace." And I don't know what word she didn't say those, but she was like, "There's something different." And you know what it was? I was at the most peace I've ever been, and sometimes you'll come into it and kind of sway, but like you'll come back to it. And when you have it, it is so hard to describe. And that's why I always, when I talk to potential clients or whoever I'm talking to, the biggest thing is being 100% true to yourself, being 100% honest with yourself. And even if it sucks and hurts temporarily, and you feel like you're in that person in the well, you will climb out. But you have to be real with yourself and be honest and say, okay, what do I need to move forward? What are these negative thoughts? What can I replace them with? Wow, who are people I need to get rid of some of these friends because they're bringing me down and move in a new direction. Like you have to be intentional, and it might take years. But let me ask you this: if it took 2 or 3 years, in the grand scheme of things, that will go by so fast.
Yeah.
Would you rather just exist in 2 or 3 years, or would you rather be thriving and be kind of nervous about all these new things happening? And by the way, when you do get what you want and you're at a new level up, it's still scary. But the difference is now you have more options. Now you
Right.
might have a little bit more money. Now you're in a relationship and you're like, wow, am I going to move to that state or is she going to move here? And you have to make more decisions, and it is stress, but it's different because you're still moving forward.
Right. And that's exactly, I was literally going to ask Mike what's his biggest piece of advice, but he just summarized it all in one.
Don't stop, move forward.
Don't stop, keep moving forward. Don't give up. Don't hold yourself
And the pain's
back.
temporary. It will go away.
It
You're in a
is.
season, it will end, and it will turn into something new. And also, if you're on the top of the world, you don't need to be afraid of the new, but don't feel bad. See things for what they are. Take a step back, observe the situation, and just be like, what's the best I can do right now? What is the silver lining?
And you have
It's all
to
how you view
take
it.
recognition, because you know what? I've been living on my own, and not many people know this about me. I've been living on my own since the age of 16 years
Mm.
old. In and out of friends' houses. At 18 years old, I got my first apartment. You know, oh my gosh, like talk about scary. There's so many obstacles where I didn't have my mom or my dad to call, or I didn't have an older sibling to be there for me, or any friends that were on the level of getting their own apartment. And I was so young, and life is still scary for me. I got a basement apartment, it flooded. I woke up literally crying like Michael Myers was standing in front of my face. Like, life is scary. Life is hard. Don't make it harder for yourself. Don't stop yourself. Have your dreams go over and beyond, just so that you can really set those goals for yourself. And don't be so hard on yourself. People are already going to be judgmental. People are already going to be hard on you. So do something for yourself and show up for yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Be there for yourself. Don't degrade yourself. Don't beat yourself up. And if you have something you want to do, get up and go do it.
Even if it's
Please, please,
even if it feels
please.
impossible. And I just want to say this. I never had a distinct plan when I first like started training people, and then I went fully online. I'm like, I'm just going to do what I can do today. And then boom, it would work. And I'm like, oh, I signed up 5 people this month. Okay, like, or people just come out of the work, and I'm like, this doesn't make sense, but I'm just going to keep on moving forward. And are there times where I'm like, oh, I haven't talked to anybody in a month? But every time it seems to work out. But it's because I keep on showing up. Also, I think where this and this are at, how you view the world. Like I always like to focus on half full, not half empty, because what you focus on, you get more of. You focus on all the problems. Kind of like whenever you got your first car, um, did you notice that once you got that car, you started to notice there's way more than you thought?
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
did.
yeah, yeah. You probably drove it and you're like, what is that? I've never seen that before. And then
Yeah,
you see all of them. Well, it's the same thing with your problems. If you start looking at the good, you're like, wow, there's so many good things. Look at that beautiful thing. But if you think, oh, everyone's selfish, no one cares about anybody
that's
else, then you'll
exactly
see
what's
it.
going to come to your plate. That's exactly what's going to fill your aura.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what you're going to
It doesn't mean ignore
normalize.
the bad, acknowledge it. But instead of being like assuming that's the norm, to say, what's a silver lining? What can I do with this?
Acknowledge it, don't normalize it.
Yeah.
So with that being said, honestly, Mike, you're such an inspiration from you going to college football, and you even being set up financially and with a roof over your head and people looking up to you and everything like that, but still knowing deep down your self-worth, your dreams, your goals, your passion, your purpose. And I'm so happy that you went through what you went through because it's made you who you are
Mm-hmm.
today. You're about to be a great dad, you're a great
Thanks.
husband. Mike is also a life, not just a fitness coach, he's a life coach, guys. He helps people through everything, not just fitness, not just through dietitian, guys, mentally, emotionally, financially. It's almost like Mike has an answer for everything. He's like the chat
And
GPT
look,
in real person.
I don't know everything. I just share my experiences.
He's just very
Yeah, and
personable.
I don't market myself as a life coach, but it's interesting that people basically what I do is I help people get out of their own way, and I help them like when I talked about being solution oriented. The main thing that like I have my clients read a book, and I have them like do this exercise where they kind of check in with themselves each day, and then say like, what's something that I could do well? What's something I did really well today? What's something that I kind of stumble with, and how could I better handle it? And you start to make these you start to
Yeah,
think about it and not just coasting. You start to set the sail of what direction you want to go in, and
100%.
all of a sudden, a year down the road, you're in a better place. And I've seen it over and over. And the people who like read the book, now everybody does, but when they read the book
Right.
like the Slight Edge and start thinking differently, now their actions start to change, and now the results start to change physically, mentally, and emotionally. And then a lot of people will be like, "Wow, this isn't really just about fitness. That was a catalyst." But when I started taking care of myself, people started to respect me more because they saw that I respected myself. And now
Hmm.
that I'm at peace and I have energy and I feel good, that's what it's about, guys. It's about showing up and keeping your cup full at the end of the day. It's not complicated. And you
Yeah.
can look at, oh, the perfect workout or the perfect diet. It doesn't matter. It's about showing up and doing the small things, taking messy action, and you're going to make mistakes. And when you fall on your face, you just get back up. And then the amount of times you fall becomes less and less. And it's
And
how it
if you
is.
guys are struggling with that, I'm going to leave Mike's social media down below if you're willing to
Oh,
have
yeah.
me
I'm
put
an open
that.
book. Just message me. Yeah.
Yeah, guys, definitely give him a follow on Instagram. He definitely makes awesome videos, and if you guys are genuinely, because I know that I have, and especially in this time and generation nowadays, everybody needs someone to talk to, even outside of the picture, outside of your family, outside of your friends. And if you need somebody, like, this is your guy. I've had very brief and long conversations with Mike, and even in the beginning of time of knowing him, just how he opened my mind and even my heart, and just to seeing things so differently than just how I've normalized seeing them. So if you guys really do struggle, like, don't feel like you're alone. There are people that have been through crazy life stories that I'm sure you guys think that you're surviving out here alone. So I'm here to talk. You
Everyone
guys can
goes
always
through
message
things.
me.
Everyone goes through things. And that's okay.
Yeah, it
It's okay
is.
not to be okay all the time, but to choose to stay there, that's an issue.
Yeah, you can't. And I've had a podcast about procrastination. Don't normalize and procrastinate being being in that ditch. So with that being said, Mike, thank you so much for coming on
Well, thanks for
to
having me.
Kay's Corner podcast. I thought this chair, guys, I honestly felt so bad putting him in this
No,
furry
I'm
little
fine.
chair,
I
but
got it.
he fits comfortably in it,
I'm
so
just
I'm
glad I didn't
happy.
break. I've broken a lot of chairs, but the
Yeah,
weight
no.
limit suffices.
Yeah, Amazon. very sturdy chair. So
I'm like almost turned 90 pounds, so like I know I don't look that big, but I've messed up a lot of chairs, and like yeah, I'm just glad I didn't break it.
that would have
That's what
been a
I'm more
great
concerned about.
blooper.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you again. Again, guys, please give Mike a follow and just go view his page. He has awesome content on there. He's an amazing, I would say, content creator too. You will learn a
I need to
lot.
put more. And you know what's funny? You talk about procrastination. I'm more long-winded, so I don't really like shorts. My shorts are okay,
Yeah.
but I'm gonna start a YouTube channel soon
Do
because I
it.
like the depth, like the conversation we had. I like that, so I just need to do it. But I'll be doing more
Yeah.
stuff like that because that's what I enjoy more. Honestly, the shorts. I know it's younger
Yeah.
generation, like quick. That's cool, but it's just not my. I don't
It's not
really.
your
I
forte.
don't like saying, "Oh, best weight loss tips." I'm like, no, there's. It depends. What about this scenario? Like, there's
Right.
so many things that
Like
matter
you
more.
said, just to go in depth.
Yes.
So talking about going in depth, guys, I can't wait to come back for another episode with you guys. But thanks for kicking it in Kay's corner. Until next